All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our today's workshop, how to supercharge your Excel with Python. My name is Sasha. I'm in charge of events and partnerships at Wagon Tokyo Coding and Data Science Bootcamps. I'm super excited to welcome Sven, who is a data analyst and also Wagon Tokyo alumni, who is going to be a main speaker for today's workshop. We will start probably from a very short introduction of Wagon Tokyo. What is it for many of you who are already based in Japan? You've heard about us a little bit. We are running web development and data science bootcamps in Tokyo. So web development, we are teaching people how to code, how to build web applications from scratch. For data science, we teach people how to use, analyze, manipulate data. Using Python, we do it in two formats. One is a full-time bootcamp, 9 very intensive weeks from Monday to Friday, and also part-time bootcamp, 6 months or like 24 weeks on Tuesdays and Thursdays on evenings, and also Saturday for the whole day. So we run our programs once in 3 months. So if you are interested in our upcoming bootcamps, feel free to send me a message. We have a lot of financing options. We have scholarships. We have also subsidies that help you to study for a very good budget. If you're interested, feel free to send me a message afterwards. That was a little bit about the Wagon Tokyo, and now we are moving to the most juiciest part of today's event. I'm happy to welcome Sven on stage. It's going to be very interesting, interactive, because we already had one workshop with Sven. It was really cool. It was a blast. Love it very much. So probably from now on, we're going to make it a regular event. So Sven, the stage is yours. Feel free to go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Sasha, for the introduction. Yeah, also from my side, welcome. And I really appreciate that you take like 1 hour time now. You could do something else, but you decided somehow to learn something about Python and Excel. So I'm really happy about that. So as Sasha already mentioned, all the materials are on GitHub, so you can just clone it. So this link here, what I'm putting on here, it will just directly bring you to my GitHub page. And then you can, later on, you can also do it for yourself. Or if you have the time now, you can also clone it right now. So before we are jumping into the topic, let me shortly, I don't spend too much on this, but let me shortly introduce myself so that you know who is speaking here. So my name is Sven, as mentioned already. I'm 32 years old, and I've been working as a data analyst or / business analyst for a German company for over 7 years now. And I also did the coding bootcamp, the Data Science Bootcamp from Wagon, which I highly recommend if you're interested in learning for data science. And at work, usually when it comes to analyzing data or automating things, I usually use VBA and Python. So for this video or this workshop, we're going to use Python, so not VBA. So and then I also have a little YouTube channel, and on this YouTube channel, it's all about like helping people with Python and VBA just to automate some of the repetitive tasks in Excel or doing some data analysis, and just to see how you get the most out of Excel. But big disclaimer here, I'm not a software developer, so I'm still a business analyst or / data analyst. So don't expect too crazy code here. It will just basically help you if you're dealing with Excel. I hope this workshop can help you. And by the way, if I'm always looking into that direction, it's because I'm working here with 2 screens. So mainly I will just focus on my main screen here and not looking at my other screen over there. So don't get distracted by that. Before we start, what are the prerequisites? Not too much. Would be great if you have some basic understanding of Python, because we are not starting completely from zero. And if you used Excel before, that would be a big plus. But I assume actually you both have the prerequisites. Now, I see also on YouTube, many people are saying, don't use Excel anymore. If you know Python, you can just do everything in Python, all your data analysis. I kind of disagree a little bit with that statement, because it's like so many people worldwide are using Excel. And it's not only for the finance department, also if you're looking at, I don't know, purchasing or logistic, also in our company, there's like every people has some touch points with Excel. And I think a lot of people are using it. So I wouldn't say don't ditch Excel just because you know Python. The idea is more like, and there's also like a little joke here. So what's the most requested feature in the business intelligence solution? It's like the export to Excel button. And this is sometimes really true, also relating to my own work. But what's the goal of this workshop actually? So what I've prepared is, I don't want to ditch completely Excel. It's more like getting the best of both worlds. So we have Python and we have Excel. And why not combining the both to get the best of both worlds? And in this workshop, I would like to inspire you with some things I came up with and share just my tips and tricks. But your use case might be completely different. So there is no one size fits all solution, unfortunately. So I will show you what I have prepared here. But maybe, as I said, your Excel file might be looking completely different. And then obviously you need to restructure the code. What exactly are we going to do? And I just put it in here. Let me scroll it so that we have it in. So basically we have 3 steps. We have an Excel file. And from this Excel file, we want to get some data and manipulate it in Python. So we are going to load it into Python. In particular, we will use a Pandas data frame. And then in here, we will do some manipulation. So we will visualize the data. So we will generate some charts, which are interactive. We do some analysis. And once we are done, we are exporting it. We are exporting it back to the original Excel file. And we also do some little automation. So we are splitting the Excel file, which is a table, which I will show you in just a second. And we are separating the data into different Excel files. So that's the plan. Question next is how we are going to do it. And here I was struggling a little bit. So maybe you're exciting to learn about Excel and how to supercharge it. And there are many things to learn, but where do we start? I think there are 2 options, but we only have 1 hour. So option 1 would be, I just show you everything what you could do, for example, with Excel and Python. So we are going to different libraries. So we use Pandas, Excel Rings, Plotly Express, pie charts. This can be a little bit overwhelming. I'm totally aware of that. It depends a little bit on your background and your experience, what you're having. The other path would be that we start really from scratch. So how to install Python, how to install Pandas, how to create your first data frame. And then people, after 5 minutes, they might get bored as well. So it's like both situations. I was not quite sure which one to pick. So I decided on the left part, and I will explain you why. It might be overwhelming, as I said, depending on your experience level, but maybe you just get some inspiration. So you never thought this is possible in Excel or in Python. And that's the reason of this workshop. I just want to inspire you. And obviously you can ask your questions also, just write them down in the chat. And as Sasha already mentioned, you can always rewatch this session, or if you're interested in a particular topic, you can also learn on YouTube. It does not need to be my channel. There are so many cool content out there. So it just like inspire you. If you find something that's interesting, then you can still always learn a little bit more about that topic. So we don't do any live coding, so to say. I've prepared everything. So that's the reason I said we are going to this path. And for the questions I mentioned already, if you have a questions, you're completely muted, but you can just write them down in the chat. And we will have a little stop after each section, and then I will answer your questions. So just feel free to write your questions regarding this topic into the chat. And with that out of the way, let's finally start and let's do some fun things here with Python. But I think before we are starting with Python, I might want to show you the Excel file I have prepared. So I have one file. It's called data. And if I open up the data file, this is what we are dealing with. We have a table. We actually have several worksheets here. So we have an orders worksheet, returns worksheet, and a people worksheet. But for this workshop, we are mainly concerned about the first worksheet, which is orders. And here we have different order IDs with different order dates. different shipping modes, customers. But what we are really concerned with, at least for this video, is the order date. Then we will have a look on the subcategory and the sales and the profit amount. Those are the data we are having a deep look and to analyze some things. For the others, not so relevant for us, but might be for you in the future if you want to play around with this data set. So this is the data we have in Excel. Now, the first thing what we might want to do is to install and import the dependencies. So you might know it already, but there's a really popular library out there. It's called the Pandas module. And Pandas, think about it like Excel, but on steroids for Python. So you can do everything what you can do in Excel, basically. You can do it in Pandas and much more. The tricky part is obviously there is no buttons, right? So they don't have a nice little user interface where you just write your formulas and you can format your cells. You actually need to write the code. So this is the Pandas library, which we're going to use. And for Pandas, under the hood, it's using another library. It's called OpenPyXL. OpenPyXL is when you're dealing with Excel files. So like in our case, we also need to install that dependencies. So to install the dependencies, you can just type pip install and then the package name in your command prompt or terminal. Or if you want to follow along, you can also uncomment out those cells here and then just run the cell. So we have Pandas, OpenPyXL. Then we have Plotly Express. Plotly Express we will be using for the visualizations. So we are creating some interactive charts. And last but not least, we will also have Excel Rings. And Excel Rings, it's more for the automation idea later on. So I will show you for what we're using Excel Rings for. But if you want to follow along, you definitely want to make sure to import those libraries. And there's another one on the really top here. It's Pairflip. Pairflip is a standard Python module, and it comes already with Python installed. So you don't need to install it extra. And this is for dealing with different file paths. And also when we are creating the folders, we will use Pairflip. So let me go ahead and run the cell here. The next thing, it's optional. It's for the charts we are going to create. So for Plotly, Plotly comes with different templates, so different themes. So they have like a predefined styling. I personally like the Plotly white template. It's really clean and tidy, and I think you can just use it also for your business presentation. And with this line of code, I'm just setting this theme, so the Plotly white theme, as my default theme. So every plot I'm creating later on, we will always be using like this Plotly white theme. As I said, that's totally optional. If you don't say it, it will be looking a little bit different, the charts. So the bars have a different color and also like the background color, it's different. But that's all what this line of code is doing. So now after our imports, so let's get actually the data. So the file we just have seen and to load it into this Pandas data frame. So the first thing I'm going here is I'm defining the path where my Excel file is located. So I have my Jupyter notebook, and here it actually comes the Pairflip library in place. So we have the current working directory of my Jupyter notebook. The folder, it was called data, and the Excel file itself, it's called data.xlsx. Now I can use this path and put it into the pandas function read Excel. And additionally, as we have seen, we have different worksheets, and we want to use explicitly the orders worksheet. So I'm going to use the sheet name orders in here. And once we loaded it, we can actually validate that this worked. So I will just give 5 sample rows here of our data. And this is exactly what we have seen in the Excel file before. We have all the columns in here, and this is what I've said. It's just like Excel, just in Python, right? So you have like it's just called a data frame in here. And if we scroll to the right, we can also see the other columns. So we have the sales and the profit. And usually when I load a data frame, the first thing I'm going to do is just to get a concise summary of my data frame. We can do this by using df.info. What this does, it lists down all the different columns which are available in our data frame, how many values are in there, so how many rows or how many records, and also the null values. For example, if you have any null values, so there is nothing in there entered, you might want to check it out. For this data frame, it's pretty clean and tidy, so there are no null values. And next to it, we have also the data type. The data type, that's really important. So Pandas is kind of smart enough to detect what kind of content it's written in the different columns. So we might have, for example, an ID. This is converted to an integer. An object is more like a Python string. And what's really interesting here, it's the order date. So Pandas was smart enough, the order date, and has recognized it as a date. This has some advantages because now we can manipulate it and extract some information out of the date. Because if we just have a look at the date column so far, it looks like this. So we have an order date in August 21st of 2020. But now for my analysis, what I would like to do is to manipulate a little bit the data. And the first thing what I'm going to do is I will add a different column or like a separate column. And I just want to extract from the order date just the month information. We can do this with Pandas, that we are saying, okay, from the order date column, use dt.month, and then it will extract the month and put it in the additional column. Additionally, so far, if we have a look at our data, we have one sales column and a profit column, but we are missing the relationship between the sales and the profit. So it would be maybe interesting to know what is the profit margin for each record. So we can create a different column and calculate the profit margin. So we are dividing the profit by the sales. So let me execute this cell. And now we've got the data frame, and we should have now 2 more columns on the right side of my data frame. So we extracted now the month and also the profit margin. And what you notice here, or what I've noticed when I've had a look at the data, it's the second row. So we have actually for the furnitures, for the chairs, we actually have a negative profit, which is maybe not so good for the business. And I thought maybe let's have a little bit deeper look into what is causing this negative profit. So this is what we are focusing also on this workshop a little bit more, and have a little bit deep dive on that. So we could cluster it by, I don't know, by the different customers. Maybe this has an impact, or the different segments. I decided to cluster my whole data frame or analysis based on the subcategory. So maybe we have a manager who is responsible for the different subcategories. So as I said, it depends a little bit on your use case. So what I will do now, I will take the whole data frame, what I have in here, and in Excel, you would usually do like a pivot table. So where you just group everything by the subcategory. And this is what I'm doing here also in Pandas. There is a Pandas method available. It's called pivot, but I usually tend to use the group by function. So we are taking the data frame and we are grouping it by the subcategory. And I don't want to have a separate index, so I will set it to false. And I want to sum up all numerical values. So let's have a look how this actually looks like. So as I said, it looks a little bit similar to a pivot table. So now we have clustered everything by the subcategory, and all numerical values, so not the strings, so really where we have some numbers, are now summed up. It doesn't make so much sense for the row ID, also not for the postal code. Also for the month, it doesn't make so much sense to sum it up, and also not for the profit margin, because this is obviously a percentage. But it makes sense definitely for the sales, the quantity, also the discount and the profit. And what I've mentioned already, or what we have seen, there was some negative profit in our data frame, and now we can actually see it already. If we just go through here and we can see, okay, machines, they have a negative profit, and also supplies and the tables. So we might actually want to have a deeper look into what is causing the issue in here. And at this point of time, it might be a good idea just to take this data and to do some plotting. So it makes it a little bit easier for the eye to see what's going on with the data. So let's analyze the subcategory. And for this, as I mentioned, we are going to use the Plotly library. It maybe looks a little bit scary, so that we are writing so much code just to create a bar chart, because I know if you're just in Excel, you just highlight the cell and then you just click the button to create the chart. But I will show you what's the benefit of using Python. So first things first, we will say to Plotly which data frame we want to work with. So we want to work with our group data frame. And then on the x-axis, I would like to have all the subcategories. And on the y-axis, I would like to plot the sales. Now, the cool part is that we can also throw in another variable, so the profit. So the bar chart, actually, let me run this. It's a little bit easier to explain it then. Now, the bars are, or they have different colors, and the colors is based on the profit. So the lower the profit, it will be indicated with a red bar. And then the higher the profit, it will be indicated as a green bar. And then we can obviously also give like a title. And by the way, this is the Plotly white theme. So obviously it's white, so there's not so much distraction for the viewer. And what I really like is the interactivity. So you can hover over the charts, and those charts, for example, they are not available in Excel. And here you can see how much each category is contributing to the overall sales. And tables, actually, they do contribute quite a bit. So we have like 60,000 USD in here for the tables, but we can see also it's red. So they're actually generating negative profit, and also like the machines, they don't look so good. So we might also focus on the machines. They also have a negative profit. But this chart, I think it's really cool with the interactivity, and it gives you a lot of insights. So what we're going to do now, we will do a little bit further analysis on those tables here. So what might be causing the diff or the negative profit? We can do this and to check if maybe the discount we are granting to the customer has an impact on the profit. So we can have a scatter plot. And what I said in the beginning, it's really nice that we have the interactivity of Plotly, because we have some outliers in here. It's a little bit screwing up the chart. So everything is kind of clustered in here. So what you can do with Plotly, you can just zoom in into the data, and I will explain the chart in just a moment here. So we have here the profit. On the x-axis, we have the sales, and the discount, it's with the different colors. So the higher the discount, it's like in this yellow shade here. It may be not so surprising, but if we look at what is everything below zero, so which we are making negative profit, we can see the higher the discount, the negative the profit. So as I said, maybe not so surprising, but the question is actually, is it for all the subcategories? So if we give like higher discounts, is it always negative in the profit, or is it maybe only for the tables? So we can take the group data frame, what we have done before, and here we can group the different columns. So we have the discount column, and from the discount column, I would like to calculate the average. And for the profit, I want to sum it up. So let me show you what I mean by this. As I said, it's like a pivot table, but this time for the discount, we have just took the average. And and I see some people are writing in this chart. That's totally fine. You can do it, but please don't write over the things I'm showing here. And then we have, next to it, we have the profit, which we have summed up all the values. So now also that we have this new data frame, let's have a look and to visualize it. So what we have in here, it's the average discount, so the higher the bar here, the more discount on average we are granting for the different subcategories. And also we have here the profit column, and we can see kind of the same picture as before, that we have kind of a huge discount on overall like 26% for the tables, but they are really negative. However, this does not mean that all the discount we are granting is automatically leading to a negative profit. So if we just have a look at the binders actually, they have the highest amount of discount on average, so almost like 40% of discount, but still they are quite profitable. So we have like 10,000 K here, roughly, which they are contributing to the overall profit. So this gives us some insights already that we might actually need to do some more analysis on the table side here. And I think this is the first stop we are going to make here. And now if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments before we are going into the next examples and visualizations. So I will make a little stop here, and I will use the time also to drink something. Okay, maybe somebody is still typing, or maybe there are not so many questions. Not so many questions, always not a good sign. So maybe it was a little bit too fast. Maybe it was people was expecting something else. So let me just know. Also, you can also let me know this in the questions. That's also fine. Okay, so we've got the first one. So can you use Seaborn instead of Plotly, as it is pretty complex? So Seaborn is just a different library. So you can also do like the visualizations. And that's totally fine. It's up to you. So there's, I think the most popular one will be maybe matplotlib, and then Seaborn. Seaborn is actually built on top of matplotlib. It's a little bit easier for the syntax. And to answer your question, that's definitely fine. You can use Seaborn. The only downside with Seaborn, at least in my opinion, and this is my personal opinion, so I hope nobody is offended by my opinion here, that you don't have the interactivity. I do like the interactivity, especially if you want to drill down into the charts or if you want to hover over the charts, because we could also, what I haven't done here, but you can also create like in this little tip box here, you can also write additional comments. So if you, for example, have a chart and you export it later on, which we're also going to do in this video, you can just go to your management and you have all your remarks written in there. So that's the reason I just personally like the Plotly, but you can also use Pandas, the Seaborn library. And yeah, might look complicated, but once you get used to it, once you get the hang of it from Plotly, all the different charts are really similar. Okay. Yeah, nice explanation. Thank you. Okay, how to create a heat map of a bar fire. So to create the heat map first, what you might want to do here is first to create a correlation. So you can have like DF correlation to see if some columns are correlating with each other. So a linear correlation I'm talking in here. And then you can plot also like a heat map. Usually things like this, for checking out different charts, I usually just have a look at the documentation, how to create a heat map. But let me say it like this, it's also possible with Plotly. But before you create the heat map, I would actually recommend that you have a look on the correlation. Makes it a little bit easier to create then the heat map. There's another question, can we use OS instead of pairflip? So pairflip was introduced with Python 3.4. And before that, usually it was OS, like the standard module with working with file paths. You can also use OS. That's totally fine. Pathflip, it's a little bit different how you handle the file path because it's more object orientated. So whenever you have like a file path, it's an object. On this object, you can create different things. So for example, you can easily just get the file name instead of the full path, or if you want to have the full path, this is where you can use Pathflip. So I personally prefer Pathflip, but OS module works also fine. So whatever works for you, you can use it. And I think also a lot of people still using OS. That's totally fine. Okay, feel free to still write your questions in the chat. But in the meanwhile, I will just continue a little bit with the presentation, just that we cover everything that I've prepared here. Now, this was really focusing on the Plotly library. But as I said, or also somebody of you said, there are so many different libraries available. And what I wanted to show you is, instead of using Plotly, there's another library which is not so well known, I think, and it's called the PyCharts library. And this is more I considered as a bonus because I won't go into all the details in here, but I just wanted to show you what is possible, what you could do. So you remember, if I'm scrolling up a little bit, that we have the different order days in the data frame. So let me go a little bit up here to our initial data frame. And scrolling a little bit to the left here, we have the different order days. Now, for the order days in the data frame, it actually could happen that we have several orders on one day. And what I would like to do is just to plot a calendar for the whole year and see on which day of the month or in which month we are generating the highest sales. This is actually not possible in the Plotly library. I think I haven't seen anything in the documentation. But another library what we could use is PyCharts. And the point I want to bring across here is you're not limited to one particular library. You can just make use of the whole ecosystem Python has to offer. So if you're into machine learning, deep learning, the same concept would apply. You just get some data from Excel, use whatever library you're comfortable with. You manipulate, analyze, or plot the data, and then you might want to return it back to Excel. So in this case, as I said, we will use the PyCharts library. The PyCharts library, it's a little bit different compared to the Plotly library because in Plotly, we can just say we want to work with a data frame. PyCharts doesn't work like this. PyCharts, they don't like, so to say, data frames. They would like to have your input for the charts in a list. And that's a little bit like a little downside maybe, but once you get the hang of it, you will understand it. As I said, I will not go into all the details in here, but basically I'm just preparing the data as the PyCharts library expected. So I will group the data by the order dates. As I said, we could have different records on the same day, and I just want to group it based on the order date so that we have one data frame that for each day we have the respective sales amount. So for example, January 1st, we have 1,482 and so on and so forth. And now, as I said, instead of the data frame, the PyCharts library would like to have it in a list. So the output, what is desired for PyCharts, is that we have on the left side within the list that we have the timestamp. So 1st of January and the respective sales next to it. And additionally, I'm also calculating the maximum and minimum sales for the whole data frame. And now, as I said, I won't go into all the details for this one. It looks a little bit complicated and scary, but I will show you the output right away. Now, what we have just done is taking all the order days, summing up the sales amount, And now we have plotted it. I just called it in the sales calendar. So we have each month here from January to December, and we have here the different days. So within the week. So now if you hover over it, for example, we can see how much sales we have generated in the respective month for the respective days. And we can see just by looking at this, so the higher the sales amount, it's going from this blue into the red color in here. We can see just by looking at this, it seems like on the second half of the year, we have actually generated more sales. And also in here for some reason, in the first 2 months, we haven't got any sales on a Saturday. But later on, maybe the shop was opening also on a Saturday. Maybe they have decided it, but maybe then closed on Sunday. And what I really like about here is that you can even now dwell further down here. So you can have like this little slider options in here to narrow down the sales amount, what you have generated on the particular day of the month. And I just wanted to show you those things because it might be interesting to see what is possible. So as I said in the beginning, I want to give you some inspiration. I cannot cover everything and your use case might be different, but maybe this gives you maybe like a little wow effect and saying, okay, that's maybe cool. Maybe I have a similar data set with a lot of sales record or whatever record you have per day, and you just want to plot it in this calendar format here. So that was the whole intention why I included it. And it's a little bit different to the Plotly library, but I thought it might be actually worth also to have it in this Jupyter notebook in here. Now, once we are done with our analysis, we might actually also want to export it back to Excel. And here we have the Pathlib library, as I mentioned. So if we have a look at my current folder structure, I will put it up here. That was the Excel file I have showed in the beginning. The Jupyter notebook is this one, by the way. The other files is just for this workshop. So where I put all my images and my Git files in here. But what I would like to do is now to create some folders, and we will use those folders to save our analysis. So we will create one folder, it's called analysis, one folder for the charts, and one folder, it's called cities. So this one will be for the automation example, which I will just show you in a second. So with Pathlib, we can just run the cell. And if I go back to my directory here, we will see we have a new folder, it's called output. And if I go in here, we have 3 subfolders, which are currently empty, but we will now fill it with some data. So we've got the output folders. And as I mentioned, the charts, what we have created, we can now export it to HTML files. So in Plotly, you can just take the chart object and write HTML, and then followed by the output path. So I will do this for all the 3 charts we have created. And once I run the cell, we will have here in my charts folder now those HTML files. What I like about this one, if you want to send this, for example, to your manager or to your colleagues, you can just attach it to an email and they can just open up the file and they don't have to have Python installed on their machine. So it's just a normal HTML file and they have all the interactivity what we have seen before. So instead of like a static image, you can still maintain the interactivity of the charts by using this Plotly library. And now let me close this one, or let's go back to the Jupyter notebook. But maybe you don't want to have it like in separate files, like in HTML files. What we could also do instead, we can just take the original Excel file, so what I've showed you in the beginning, and the data frames and also the charts, we can just inject it directly into the Excel file. So in the original Excel file. This might be also pretty cool because then you just have a normal Excel file with all the data or analysis what you have done. And for this, we will use the Excel Wings library. So the Excel Wings library is particularly useful if you want to do some automation or want to manipulate any Excel file. So what I'm doing in here in the first step, I'm initializing the Excel instance. This one, it will just open up an Excel instance. So it will just open up Excel on your machine. That's all it does. But I'm setting visible to false. So because I don't want to see actually the Excel window popping up on my machine. In this instance of Excel, it's just like if you would click on File and Open and select the workbook. This is what I'm doing here in Python. It's just like saying, okay, take Excel and open up the workbook. And the workbook, it's the same what we have done in the pandas when we manipulated the data. It's in my current working directory and this Excel file. And within this workbook, what I want to do next is to add a new sheet. So we will use this sheet now, or we utilize this sheet to insert or inject all our analysis in there. So we can just take the workbook and add a new sheet. And now from the three charts, what we have created, I will only inject two. So we've got the sales and profit bar and the profit discount bar, not the scatter plot, and we can just put it in there. So from my new sheet, what I have created, I will just put it on A1, the first sheet. On the second chart, we will put it on A25. And then I can also take our data frame, what we have created, and put it in cell K1. And last but not least, I'm doing some styling here. So for example, for the data frame, so for the headers, I would just set the different background color, the font color, and the font to white, and also rename the sheet to analysis. And I will save this one to a new file and call it datanew.xlsx. So let me run the script. And once it's done, we can actually check it out in the data directory folder. So let's go back in here. So this was the charts. And now also in the analysis, we will have one new file. It's called the data_new. And if I open up this file, we will see, let me shortly go back to the original file. So this is where we have started. And now I have inserted a new worksheet where we have a chart. Now we don't have the interactivity. This is not possible in Excel, but we have it like an image. So the sales and profit by subcategory, the average discount by the subcategory. And also this is the data frame, what we have just created in Pandas. It's just like one example. And obviously you can also insert more analysis, what you might have done, also back to Excel. And then you can just send out this Excel file or just save it and go from there. So let me also close this one. And the last, and then I will also answer the questions, is a little bit automation. So now we were talking about like analyzing and visualizing the data. And you could also use Python to automate some of the stuff. So in the Excel file, we have one column, and I will scroll up again to the initial data frame, what we have loaded. So I will wait a second here. It might be lagging a little bit in Zoom. So here we have the data frame. And in this data frame, we only have a look at the order date, the sales and the profit and the subcategory. But we also have the city names. So it's over here. So we have like different cities in here from the customer. Now, maybe, and as I said, it depends a little bit obviously on your use case, but I just wanted to show you what is possible with Excel. So what I've came up with an idea. How about we are filtering our data frame for each and every city, and for each city, I would like to have a separate workbook. And by the way, we have like over 300 different cities. So we can actually also have a look at the unique values in here. So now I'm just taking 15, but if you just have a look of all the different cities here, that's a lot of different city names, what we have in our data frame. So what I was thinking now is how to create a separate workbook for each city. So what we can do is the list what we have in here, we can iterate over that list. So let's take, for example, Sanford. What Python will do in this for loop, it will filter the data frame. It's like an Excel. If you filter the data frame, the same you can do in Pandas. So here I'm just saying query, and the query should be equal to the current value in my for loop. So for example, if this is Stanford, it will just Sanford, it will just query the data frame, filter the data frame by Sanford, and then it will take this new data frame and export it to Excel. I will just let it run because it might take some time. And for the sheet name, for Excel, there's a limitation. So the sheet name cannot be longer than 31 characters. I haven't checked it, but maybe there's one city name which is super long. If you're running into issues, then it might be because the name is just too long and the sheet name cannot be longer than 31 characters. So that's the reason I'm slicing down here a little bit on the string. And also, I don't want to have an index of the Pandas data frame. Now, as I said, this might take some time because now if I'm going back to the Excel folder, so we have the analysis, the charts, and now we have also the last one, which is the cities. And now we have a lot of different Excel files. So as I said, it's like 300 Excel files or so. And if I open up one file, so Miami, for example, doesn't matter which one I'm picking here, we should only see the data for Miami. So we can see the original data frame. I will zoom in a little bit, makes it a little bit easier for you to see. And now we have the original data frame, but just everything for Miami. Now, I took the cities, but maybe you want to do it for the subcategories and then send it out to the different managers for the subcategories, whatever your use case is or might be. I just wanted to also include this little automation example. And last but not least, because we only have 10 minutes left and I want to answer some of your questions, I wanted to give you a little gift because now you spent like almost 1 hour listening to me, what I'm doing here in Excel, and you could have done like watching Netflix or whatever you might be doing in your leisure time. So for me, when I'm dealing with Excel, usually the data frame, it's not always so neat and clean what we have seen in the example. So usually, and maybe it's just at our company, but the data might look a little bit different. So this is usually how the data looks like in real life. So we have maybe here like a merge cell, and then we have here the data. It's similar what we have done before, but then we have also some remarks here on the side. And down at the bottom, if I'm scrolling a little bit down here, we have like a total column. And if you read in this data in Pandas, it's possible, but you need to do, you need to tell Pandas a little bit more. Let me go back to my Jupyter notebook in here. You actually need to say, okay, which sheet name you're working, how many rows it should need to skip. So from the, because usually Pandas is assuming it's sitting in the first cell here. So we need to skip 3 rows, which columns you want to use and how many columns you want to include in your Pandas data frame. So I came up with a little Excel in. It's called My Tool Belt. And what this does, you can just click this button in here, create a Pandas data frame, and it will ask you to select the data you're interested in. So let me select here the, let me go up a little bit. Let me view and cancel this, unfreeze. Let me go back in here, create the Pandas data frame. And now I'll just select my data and I will exclude the last row because I'm not interested in the total column and click OK. And now what we have in our workbooks directory, if I'm going back to my directory, we will have a Pandas file or like a Python file, which includes the Pandas code to read in the Excel data correctly. So let me open up this file. So, and then this is what this little add-in has done for us now. Import the dependencies over here. and then it reads in automatically like how many rows it needs to skip, which column to use, and also how many rows you want to have in your selection. And you can do this same thing also to create a Jupyter notebook, which I will not show you because we are running out of time here a little bit. But I want to give this add-in completely for free. So if you want to grab it, the only downside it's only for Windows. So if you're using a Mac, I'm really sorry. I haven't developed this solution on Mac. So if you just go on my website, the links are also down in this Jupyter notebook and also what we have posted in the chat. You can use a discount code if you go for the Pro license, because those features are only available in the Pro license. You can just use the coupon code LeWagon 100, all in capital letters. And yeah, you can just get it for free. Install it. Maybe it helps for your data analysis, for your job. The valid is code today and tomorrow. So just go on the website, Python and VBA.com/mytoolbelt, and just get it from there if you want. As I said, it's only for Windows, but maybe it might be useful. And then last but not least, I will also have some links if you want to connect with me. So YouTube, my website, my GitHub. And with that, I would like to spend the last 5 minutes to answer your questions. Okay, so what do we have here? Yeah, so we have like the first question. So for the group by method on Pandas, yeah, you can use it for multiple aggregation functions. So we have like the mean and the max and the cumbersome. That's possible. So definitely. So if I scroll up a little bit, so the question is, where did I use it? I think when we did the analysis here, yeah, you can actually also have, I think if we just put it in a list in here, you can also have like the mean, the sum. You can just put different aggregation functions in here, and then Pandas will group it by the different aggregation functions. So that's totally possible and up to you. How can we save the calendar and chart? Okay, so for the sales calendar, currently I have rendered it to my notebook. And if you want, you can just use the same method here, render. And then you can just use, I think instead of render underscore notebook, you can just say render in here. And let's see. Sales.html, I think it's here. So let me have a look. Going back here, so we have a new HTML file. Yeah, so let me scroll in a little bit. So then we also have it as an HTML file. And you can also send it to your colleagues. The cool thing is actually, this is really small. So this is like 38 kilobytes only. So whereas Plotly charts are a little bit heavier actually. Okay. How GSet can be used here? So how I think Google Sheets can be used here. So for Google Sheets, I haven't prepared any demonstration. There are also libraries out there to work with Google Sheets. For me personally, my own experience, it's mainly on Excel files. This is what we're using in our company. So that's the reason this whole presentation was mainly focusing on Excel. But there's a dedicated library also for Google Sheets out there. And I think it's called like GSpread, if I'm not mistaken. So you can use it in there. So the main thing, what you just want to do is get the data into a Pandas data frame. That's basically it. Once you have it in the Pandas data frame, you can use all the methods I have showed also in this demonstration in here. And to get it, it might be also in Pandas. It might be also possible to just use, instead of read Excel, might be also possible just to read in the Google Suites, Google spreadsheet. Might be possible. I need to check it. Yeah, Linux. Sorry, so this is all for Windows, not for Macs and Linux. The add-in I think you are talking about. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have it. How hi Sven, did you develop that in with VBA or Python? Yeah, I developed that in with VBA. So as I said, my passion is VBA and Python. This talk was only centered about Python, but I also do a lot of VBA. So I created the whole add-in in VBA. This Jupyter notebook is shared here. Yeah, so you can grab this Jupyter notebook on my GitHub page. And also, if it's a little bit easier for you to remember, I will just post it one more time here, the link. It will just directly bring you to my GitHub page. So Python and VBA / Supercharge charge Excel. It will bring you to the GitHub page, which will look like this here. And here you will find the Jupyter notebook, what I have just shown in this workshop. Yeah, isn't it always better to convert Excel files to CSV files for simple and better analysis? I wouldn't say it's better, but it depends on you. So maybe you're working with CSV files. Yeah, definitely, then do it. It's actually, that's not a big deal to change it actually. So when I have exported to Excel, you can just, I think I'm using Excel Wings here to explicitly export it to Excel Wings. But in Pandas, you can also write something like this. For example, if you have the data frame and then you can just write to CSV and then you just give the file path in here. That also works fine if you want to have it in the CSV file. But in the CSV file, obviously, it's comma separated file. You don't include charts in there, right? So and then you only have the data, so to say, whereas in Excel, you can include like the pictures, what I have done in here. You can also include it. Okay, now the last question, because it's already 8 p.m. now in Japan. So can we know how to develop that messy Excel file reader tool? Yeah, it's a little bit more work how to create this kind of tool like the add-in in VBA. So it's a good question, but it's actually a bit of code. It might take some time to explain it. I'm actually planning on my YouTube channel at some point, maybe to do some video about it, how I created it. So maybe you just want to watch out on my YouTube channel. So maybe in the future, there will be one video explaining how I created the tool. Do you any PDF for Excel Wings? Yeah, Excel Wings, the library, you can easily also convert any Excel sheet, what you're having, to PDF file. So there's a dedicated method available, which you can use, I think, on a range object. For example, you can use the range or even like the worksheet. And there's a method available in Excel Wings where you can just say to PDF and it will just print out the Excel sheet to a PDF format. So that's possible with Excel Wings. So usually if you're interested in those kind of topics, just have a look at the documentation and Excel Wings. So I know it's possible because sometimes I'll also do it and export the whole thing to PDF. Okay, some people happy to joining here. Yeah, so happy that you joined also, that you took the time here. The last question, maybe it might be the last question because you're running a little bit over time here. Do you prefer Python or VBA? It's a great question. And I get this question actually also a lot on my YouTube channel. It might be confusing because I'm doing both Python and VBA. So that's the reason I have created like a dedicated video to explain Python versus VBA, my personal opinion. If you want to have a look, you can just look it up on YouTube. But to give you my short answer, it's kind of down here. If you only want to do automation, so meaning you want to split the worksheets, you want to create different workbooks, you want to send out workbooks with Outlook, for example, and you want to share it easily with colleagues and friends, then just learn VBA. I think the syntax is pretty easy to learn and there's no need for Python because as I also mentioned in here, there's no need to killing a mosquito with an atomic bomb when a simple spray can do the job. So VBA only for automation, just use VBA. However, For everything else, you might just want to learn Python. So if you want to do like data analysis, machine learning, creating interactive charts, then I recommend learning Python. Okay, yeah. Yeah, also thank you from my side. Yeah, and I think that was kind of the last question. And as Sasha mentioned, or as I mentioned also here, feel free also if you still have a question and you want to reach out to me, the contact details are in here. Have a look maybe on my YouTube channel or on the GitHub page on my website. There's also like a contact formula. Also my email is in here. So if you have any questions, just let me know and I will be happy to answer if the time permits. Yeah, and then thank you very much. And maybe Sasha, you want to have the last word here?